But this quarterback coming in from Colorado State, in 2022, he threw 17 passes. Don't look up those stats, folks. You're not going to want to do that. But it's only 17 throws, but it is pretty dismal. Did not step on the field this past fall as a former 3-star out of California.
I'm just, maybe I'm just overly intrigued by this, but I didn't know that this recruitment was occurring. And Mark, have you looked at this kid's recruitment out of high school? I mean, he was out of high school. First of all, he attended La Jolla High School, which is home of the Sea Lions down in the San Diego area. Beautiful area of the country, by the way. Took a trip there a year ago. Got family down there. But here's a young man, Mark, he was a high major prospect. I mean, there's no question about it. A high major scholarship prospect. He's a 3-star out of high school. But he had decent offers for a guy I was bringing in as a walk-on. He was originally committed to Washington. All right. So remind me, Mark, who was the head coach at Washington before Kalen DeBoer?
Jimmy Lake.
So when Jimmy Lake got fired, Jackson Stratton decommitted. Now, it sounds like DeBoer did not honor his scholarship, so that probably part of it. But my point is, Jimmy Lake had him committed out of La Jolla. He also had offers from Nevada, from FIU, had some Ivy League schools in there, had interest from Oregon State, Washington State, ends up at Colorado State. And the connection there, Mark, is Jay Norvell recruited him to Nevada. Then Jay takes the job at Colorado State and takes Jackson once Jackson decommits from Washington. And the irony there, of course, is Jay Norvell's a Hawkeye himself and had great things to say about Jackson when they signed him. Now, again, I mean, you look at his numbers as a high schooler. He was ranked, I think, you have it up on the screen there, 68th best quarterback in the country. He wasn't even in the top 100 in California overall. But he's got a big arm. Sounds like I have not watched extensive tape of Jackson, but at 6'4", 205, I'm just looking at it from the perspective of, Mark, I was bringing him in as a walk-on. So they lost, what's his face? Name's going to escape me. It's a Sunday. I'm not supposed to be thinking about these things.
Deacon Hill.
No. Well, of course, Deacon Hill. I'm not going to forget Deacon Hill. No, the walk-on. Somebody will say it in the chat. The walk-on kid who just entered the portal, who's I don't know where he's at right now, where his recruitment's at, but he entered the portal. They needed another walk-on, right? They were already thin at the quarterback position. They go out and they get Jimmy Sullivan from Northwestern.
Brendan.
Who's Jimmy Sullivan? Jimmy Sullivan's the quarterback Iowa has in 25. See, I am not supposed to be thinking in these terms on Sundays. Brendan Sullivan from Northwestern. They'll get Jimmy Sullivan a year from now. But my point is, they needed another quarterback with the departures of Deacon Hill, the injury to Cade McNamara. We expect him to be healthy here soon. However, had 2 serious knee injuries. Thank you, Isaac. Tommy Paholski's the walk-on that left the program. You get Marco Lainez through 1 spring, and then James Rezar isn't even on campus yet. I mean, I understand it. If you can get a kid to come here without a scholarship and someone who had a Power 5 offer out of high school, Mark, and who was on scholarship at a solid G5 last year, I take him. I would. That's my novel take. Maybe you'll tell me I'm wrong, but now looking at his measurables at 6'5", 210 or whatever he is, he doesn't scream mobile quarterback, right? But he's coming in as a walk-on. He's coming in to provide depth and snaps in practice, and he does have college football experience, which is more than you can say about Marco Lainez, with the exception being very late in that Tennessee game. It's more than you can say about true freshman James Rezar. So it's a win. Now they've got some numbers back. What do they be 5 deep now at quarterback, including the walk-on? That's enough. Now, quality depth, that's yet to be seen. But, I mean, even right now, you have to feel better about where the quarterback position is than a year ago from now. right? Like, we don't know what Cade's health is right now, but we also didn't know what Cade's health was a year ago, and that came to fruition when he got hurt during Kids Day and then got seriously hurt during the season. But now they have Brennan Sullivan, who's got game experience, Cade McNamara, who's got game experience, and a guy in Jackson Stratton who's been in college a couple of years and has taken snaps, and Marco Lainez has taken a few snaps. Deacon Hill is gone. Joe Labus is gone. I know some people like Joe. He just was never going to play here. And yeah, so I think it's a good ad as a walk-on. Certainly, if Iowa had put him on scholarship, that would have been a big quandary as to why they were doing that. They're not. Now, why is Jackson Stratton transferring to Iowa as a walk-on? That would be a question that I would have for Jackson. I've not talked to him since he committed. Again, I've been on vacation myself. But I'd be curious, Mark, does this mean that he had no other scholarship offers? I doubt that. He was on scholarship at Colorado State. Yeah, his numbers were 17 throws were not good. But, you know, maybe he picked Iowa as a place to walk on because they sold him. They sold to him the idea that, hey, if you work, you can get on scholarship and maybe get on the depth chart at some point. I don't know. He's from Southern California, so it's not like he's coming here to be closer to home.
So evaluating quarterback room, I would say on the surface, not knowing the plight of Cade McNamara going into last season, that at this point last year, the quarterback room was better in this way. We didn't know that Cade McNamara was going to be injured. We thought he was going to be a more than mid-level quarterback in the Big Ten. However, now we've got more knowledge of his situation, his injuries, and possibilities. So to make that comparison now with full knowledge of everything now that's happened in the past year, I would say the quarterback situation is better now, simply because Brendan Sullivan is a much better quarterback than Deacon Hill. He's a significant upgrade from Deacon Hill. That's why I would evaluate the position to be better right now.
But with that being said, Cade was coming off a serious injury a year ago at this time.
Yes, and now he's coming off 2 years of injuries.
Right.
Yes. Now, in terms of this quarterback here, Stratton, yeah, we don't have game evaluation on him. Somebody could dig up 17 passes. I don't know if they're on YouTube. If you look up the San Jose State game from 2022, Colorado State, San Jose State, I don't know if YouTube goes quite that deep, but it certainly may. I'm sure those games are on TV somewhere. So you could look up 17 passes. However, based on everything that you just outlined, other than that, the evaluation coming out of high school and everything else involved, yes, win. Very little downside, more upside than downside. It would have to be a catastrophic situation for him to be playing meaningful snaps this year. Therefore, his best contribution is, does he provide the second and third team defense challenging reps in practice? Is he capable enough to replicate a Big Ten quarterback, at least reasonably so, in practice?
Yeah. You see competition. That room needs competition. And here's the big thing I go back to, and I even stated it with the commitments of Sullivan and Gill from Northwestern. I don't want to make too much out of this, but you have a different offensive coordinator, a guy who's a quarterback coach by trade, who's had extreme success with receivers. Those are Iowa's two biggest positions of struggle. Like, again, what's Tim Lester? I'd be curious to know what the recruiting process was like with a guy like Jackson Stratton. So my guess is when Tommy Pahalski left, they were like, okay, our aim is to go get a scholarship quarterback with experience. They did that with Brendan Sullivan. And Mark, I said this weeks ago, I said, they're probably going to add a walk-on. I mean, they need a walk-on on the roster. Now, here's what happens, Mark, and you know this. This becomes a bad thing if and when the NCAA makes this 85-person rule as it relates to roster totals. That will change the game completely. And we can talk about that. I don't know how much you've discussed that on the channel, but that's a potential big impact to the sport. But as it sets right now, this is a positive thing. Jackson Stratton, had more experience last year than Deacon Hill had at Wisconsin. Deacon Hill never played any snaps at Wisconsin I'm aware of. He was on scholarship at Wisconsin. And he came here and was the second string quarterback, Mark. So they're getting a guy with slightly more experience who I would project to end up being third team quarterback, fourth team quarterback, probably fourth. And that's if James Reesar doesn't come on right away. Because I would think as of right now, if you had to put together, if they had to list the order of the pecking order for these quarterbacks, it would be Cade McNamara, Brendan Sullivan, Marco Linez, and then number 4 would either be Jackson Stratton or James Reesar. How could you even put Reesar on when he's not even on campus? But Stratton isn't on campus either. So, yeah, I mean, that's how I look at it. I just wonder what the recruiting process was like for Stratton with Tim Lester at the helm. Because the first thing you think of, Mark, when you hear, oh, he's from Colorado State, is you think, oh, he had a connection with John Budmeyer because Budmeyer was the OC there. He committed to Colorado State, flipped to Colorado State right after Budmeyer got fired. So he flipped because Norvell took over for that coaching staff with the crazy guy whose name escapes me. Who's the coach that Budmeyer was under that kind of had some what was that guy's name? He's a Baldy. He's a Baldy. Not like James Franklin bald, but he's bald. He's very bald.
Was that when Steve Adazio went there?
Yes, Steve Adazio.
Yes.
Wasn't he bald?
Yes.
Okay. Steve Adazio. So Steve Adazio leaves, and Stratton committed to that Colorado State team that had poached Norvell from Nevada. So I don't believe it. As far as I'm aware, it's not a connection to John Budmeyer like Deacon Hill was. Okay. And then your next question is, was it the connection to Jay Norvell? Maybe. I mean, maybe. He was on scholarship there, entered the portal. Would I be surprised if Kirk Ferentz didn't put a call into Jay? Frankly, I'd be surprised I'd be almost shocked if he didn't. Don't you think, Mark? Like, as far as I'm aware, I don't think Kirk has any bad relationship with Jay Norvell. I believe they're on good terms. I would think Kirk would have called Jay and said, hey, what can you tell me about this young man that you've had on scholarship? So I would think that means that he was given a positive endorsement. And again, Iowa got him in as a walk-on.
And I also think that in this day and age of social media and the proliferation of so many camps, that there are connections out there behind the scenes and underneath the surface that we can't necessarily connect the dots on.